In 12.4, we're learning about the law of sines. So we're going to start with some review. First thing we're going to do on number 1 is find the height of that triangle. So they don't give us this, but we should know that height is perpendicular to the ground. So I'm going to make that a right angle. Alright, so we recently learned SOHCAHTOA. We're given this angle. We want the side opposite of that, and we know the hypotenuse. So opposite and hypotenuse, that would be sine. So sine of 20 degrees, and opposite of the 20 is h, and the hypotenuse is 10. So now we multiply both sides by 10. We get that h equals 10 times the sine of 20 degrees. Alright, make sure your calculator is in degree mode when you do this. Rounding to the nearest tenth, we get 3.4. Alright, for number 2, we're going to find the area of a triangle. So this is review from a lot further back. Area of a triangle is 1/2 the base of the triangle times the height of the triangle. So the base is the bottom, which is 10. And the height is given, which is 7. So half of 10 is 5. 5 times 7 is 35. Alright, so why are we reviewing this? Well, in 12.4, we're going to learn how to calculate the area of a triangle when we're not given the height. So combining number 2 and number 1 together. Number 2 was finding the area of a triangle. Number 1 was finding the height of a triangle. And now we're going to find the area when we don't know the height. Alright, so here are 3 examples with the same shape but different letters are labeled. So I'm going to draw the height. And we know that height is always perpendicular to the ground or the bottom. Alright, so before I find the area, we need to know the height. So notice the only angle we're given is angle A. We're actually not given it, but it's the only angle that's labeled. So we want the side opposite of A. We have the hypotenuse of this right triangle. We can't use B because notice we've cut B into 2 sections. So even though the B is labeled, we're not going to use that to find the height. Alright, so the sine of angle A is equal to opposite, which we labeled as the height, over, and what's the hypotenuse of this right triangle here? The hypotenuse is C. So sine of angle A equals the opposite side, which is H, over the hypotenuse, which is C. It's a little confusing because H does not stand for hypotenuse in this case. Alright, so we want to know the height, so I'm going to multiply C to the other side. So this is the height of the triangle, and we want to find the area. So the area, and I'll just write the word area so that we don't get confused with angle A. The area equals 1/2, and the base is B, so we could use B when we're finding the area of the triangle. 1/2 B, and then instead of H, I'm going to plug this in for H. C times sine of angle A. I'm going to put parentheses here so it's easy to see. Alright, so notice capital letters are used for angles and lowercase letters are used for sides. So we have 1/2, and then we're going to multiply sides B and C and the sine of angle A. Alright, so the shortcut is that there's a formula you can use. The area of a triangle, instead of 1/2 base times height, you could do 1/2 and then any two sides and then the sine of the angle in between. So the formula is area equals 1/2 any two sides. So on this example, they give us sides A and side C, and then times the sine of the angle in between. The angle in between always has a different letter. So between A and C is angle B. Between A and B is angle C. Okay, for the last one, what two sides did they give us? So it's 1/2. They give us sides A and B, and then sine of the angle in between. The angle in between A and B has to have a different letter, but capitalized. Alright, so that's the formula. 1/2 any two sides, and the sine of the angle in between. That's why it's called the law of sines. So 1/2, we're given one side is 10, one side is 30, and then the sine, do we have the angle in between the 10 and the 30? We do, it's 20 degrees. Rounding to the nearest tenth, we get 51.3. And I'm not a fan of writing units when there are no units. If you want to write the word units squared, that's fine. Alright, so law of sines is area of a triangle equals 1/2. Multiply two of the sides together, and then the sine of the angle in between the two sides that you used. Okay, we're going to get a nice answer on this one because sine of 30 is just 1/2. So we have 1/2 times 20 is 10, times 5 is 50, and then half of that is 25. For number 5, the area is going to be 1/2. The two sides we're given are 8 and 17, and the angle in between those is 40 degrees. Alright, rounding to the nearest tenth, we get 43.7 square, whatever the units are. Okay, number 6, you have to be careful because they give you all three angles. So it's 1/2 still, and then they only give us two sides, so we have to use those two sides. And now we have to use the angle in between those two sides. So in between the 9 and the 12 is a 95-degree angle. So they give you these other two angles to try to throw you off. Alright, rounding to the nearest tenth on that one, we get 35.9 units squared. On the back, we're going to derive the law of sines. So the formulas we were using, that was not the law of sines. Those were just formulas for the area of a triangle. Alright, because all these formulas can be used on the same triangle, depending on what you're given, you can set these formulas equal to each other. Alright, and now we're going to derive the law of sines, which is used to solve triangles. So first, notice they all have 1/2. So if we multiply all three of those sections by 2, we can just get rid of the 1/2s on all of them. Okay, now we could divide all of them by ABC. Okay, so in the first fraction, BC cancels out, and we have sine A over A. A and C cancel out. We have sine B over B. And sine always gets the capital letter because you always put an angle with sine. All right, A and B cancel out, and we have sine C over lowercase c. So this is the law of sines. You're not going to use all three fractions. You're going to use 2 out of the 3. So maybe when you're solving, you use these 2. Or maybe you used these 2. Or maybe you use the A fraction and the C fraction. So that's the law of sines, but you're only going to use 2 out of the 3. Okay, so when you're solving triangles, what does it mean to solve a triangle? That means to find any angle that's not given and any side length that's not given. So there are 3 sides and 3 angles. So 6 things total. Usually they'll give you 3 out of the 6, and you have to find the other 3. On number 7, they give you 2 of the angles. So anytime they give you 2 of the angles, it's really easy to find the third because you know that all 3 angles have to add up to 180. So 85 plus 15 is 100, and all 3 angles have to add up to 180. So what does the third angle have to be? It has to be 180 minus 85 minus 15. So it has to be 80. Alright, so angle D, and alright, capital D equals 80 degrees. We still need to find lowercase d, and they give us side F. We need to find lowercase e. Remember that the angle is always across from the side with the same letter. So the 12, that is side F because it's across from angle F. Alright, so now we're going to use the law of sines to find those other 2 missing sides. First thing you should identify is what letter do you have both of? And that is letter F. So we're definitely going to use sine F over side F equals. So I'm definitely using that fraction because we know both angle F and the length of side F. And it doesn't matter what we do next. We could either find side D or side E. Let's just go in alphabetical order. We're going to equal this to sine D over lowercase d. So plugging in what we know, sine of angle F is 15 degrees. Side F is 12. Sine of angle D, we just found angle D, it's 80 degrees over, and then we don't know the length of side D. Alright, so now multiply diagonally. Multiply that times that, and that times that. Give us D times sine 15 equals 12 sine 80. And then we're going to divide both sides by sine of 15. So these sine 15s cancel out. So if you do this on your calculator, you'll get that D equals 45.66, which will round to 45.7. Alright, so now we're going to do the same thing, but to find side E. So I'm going to copy this part of the problem, because we know we're going to use that again. Sine of 15 degrees over 12 equals, and now we're trying to find side C, so we're going to use sine. Angle E is 85 degrees, and that goes above side E. Alright, cross multiply, you get E sine 15 equals 12 sine 85. And now divide both sides by sine of 15. And go to your calculator, and you get 46.2. Right, one way you could check your work, make sure that the biggest angle has the same letter as the longest side. So what was the biggest angle? The biggest angle was 85 degrees, which was E. And what was the longest side? It was also E, 46.2. And then same thing with the smallest. The smallest angle was 15 degrees, that's F. The shortest side was 12, which was also F. Alright, number 8, they give you two angles again. So subtracting from 180, 180 minus 100 is 80, and then minus the 10 is 70. So right away we could say angle Y equals 70 degrees. Alright, so what are we not given? We're not given side Y, and we're not given side Z. This is side X, and I know that because it's across from angle X. Alright, so right now the only letter we know both of is X. So I know that one of my fractions is going to be sine of X, and I won't write X, I'll write 10 degrees, over, and how long is X? X is 6. Okay, and we'll use this to find Y first. So sides always go on the bottom, and angles go on top. Sine of, and then angle Y was 70 degrees. Cross multiply, Y sine 10 degrees equals 6 sine 70. Divide both sides by sine of 10 degrees. And we get that Y equals 32.5. And I'll write that over here. Okay, I'm going to use this fraction again. Sine of 10 degrees over 6, and this time we're going to do sine Z over Z. Sine angle Z is 100, and side Z we don't know. Alright, cross multiplying, Z sine 10 equals 6 sine 100. Divide by sine 10. Z equals 34.0. Alright, so again, they give us two angles, so it's pretty easy to find the last angle. They give us J and H, so the one we don't know is K. So K is going to equal, and we have to take 180, subtract 34, and subtract 48, and you get 98 degrees. Okay, so what's the only letter that we know both of? The only letter we know both of is J, so we're going to use that fraction. So sine of angle J over 12 equals, and we need to find K and H. So I'm going to do K first. Sine of 98 degrees over K, lowercase k. Cross multiply. And divide by sine 34. .25 will round to 21.3. So lowercase k is 21.3. And now let's find side h. So use this fraction again. But now use h for the other side. So sine angle h is 48. Side h, that's what we're solving for. Cross multiply. We're trying to get h alone, so we divide by sine 34. Alright, and the calculator says h equals 15.9. Okay, that's it for the first half of the lesson.